probably one of the more famous racers out of Angola, Indiana, Hank Lauer, here with us, and talking about racing for years. Remember you back, you raced in the '60s locally, and then you got and kind of
Yep.
start watching them stop in supermods with the Woody cars, and you came over and bought a couple cars, start racing Butler modified, with kind
Yep.
of like a more of a up to date super modified super style racer. Then you get into the sprint cars, and you did pretty successful there, winning even a big USAC race at Butler one year. Then the side sprints start racing on dirt and pavement, having a traveling series. You were following that, then out of value. Now you got a vintage car, one of the old cars back in the day. But kind of go back to when you first started racing. Did you just go out to the racetrack to check things out, or somebody have a car down the street, or?
Yeah, this number 37 car, which that's the number I use. That Mark Rader had Larry Zimmerman driving that car for him at Butler Speedway, and I always kind of liked to go fast and ride my bicycle fast to go and run a horse as fast as go. And he was racing that car, and he was a neighbor, not a next door neighbor, but he was a couple miles from me,
Mm-hmm.
and I wanted to do that, so I went with him to Butler Speedway. In 1959, I got to drive that car,
Out in the
and
boonies
and
for that track.
Butler Motor Speedway, and I drove that race, and I'd been in competition with a guy that I run against uh, in 4-H, and we'd go back and forth in that 4-H. They'd win, I'd win, So when we got in that race, I wasn't going to let him win. And I went on and won it, and went on then. And I didn't do much until 1964, until they opened up Avella, and then I started racing modified these coupes full time.
And that was cool too, because then it was dirt and pavement,
Yeah,
pretty much with the same car.
it was all dirt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was all dirt. We just stayed in the dirt. And then when they went to, they was running 2 nights a week. I just do one night a week and go to Butler on the second night. And then when he went to pavement, I just stayed on the dirt.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't do no pavement until they started that in the sprints on dirt.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's when I started doing both. But it took me a long time to learn it.
And some great competition at Butler back in the day.
Yeah, it was.
It was Zimmerman, and like you say,
Yeah,
yourself was kind of a youngster back then.
Yeah, it was. And those guys had just getting out, Artie Hall and all them guys, they was just getting out of that. And then the second guys are coming, like Don Earls, the 92 car runs the vintage. He raced there.
Oh, Slagle.
Yeah, Slagle. And Elmer Zabowski and all them guys, that was kind of the next group. And that's the group I was running against.
Mm-hmm.
They run against Zimmerman and them guys. And then got to go with that. So then say about that Woody, like you say, car, make go under. And he said, I make it for payment. But then, yeah, when we went to the sprint car, it was, they started letting them run because they wouldn't let them go at Butler. And then we started winning with that, and just kind of went on from there. In the payment deal, we took a long time to learn it because I wanted to drive like it was on dirt.
I remember the first race at Avila, and I mean, it was a lot of the dirt guys were flooring it around the track, just burning the rubber. The Jimmy Emstutz was the announcer then. And we were there, and he was talking. He says, "Boy, these guys are burning these tires up. We're going to have to see if they're going to last 25 laps."
I was one of them.
So then here goes, feature race. You're out in the lead like lap 5, and you're just smoking it. And he's like, "These tires just won't last this whole race." And he's like, Hank's doing a blistering pace, literally. And a lot of the other guys were having trouble. And then you had Bloom and you had Vandermoss there with the pavement cars and Sealman, and they were just, doing their own little thing, and gaining bit by bit. I think it was on the white flag lap. You were about ready to take the white flag, and you blew that right rear.
Yep.
And you end up still finishing the race.
Third.
But people just went nuts over that thing. And
I went up third on the flat.
And probably, when they did that first race, and they're just thinking, well, we got something going on here. Because the dirt guys were still trying to figure out how to run that. And so Tom's like, we're going to get a show at Plymouth here, a couple weeks down the road, and the place was packed. And what was cool with those advertisements he would put on TV,
Sure.
he would show Knoxville, Iowa, with the cars flipping into the
Yeah.
fence and over
Yeah.
the fence, and people are like, oh my God, these guys are nuts. And because then Warsaw had closed just before that,
Yep.
and we did that first show at Plymouth, and you guys were there doing the same thing, broadside-ed, and that place you couldn't find a seat to be had. So Tommy was on to something there.
Yeah, you are
And
really.
and then, like I said, they did the Sod series with John Nide,
Yep.
and and then he was calling it Soda. It's on dirt on asphalt,
Yeah.
and
So
then it was a great. He had Fila,
was.
he had Billy in there, Brian Tyler, the guy from Butler, yourself.
Yeah.
Boy, Scott Seaton was another one.
Seaton.
Shearston. And then you had
John
other guys
Boy
that
Hotchkiss.
would dabble. Then we get your Warsaw guys in. Atkins
Yeah.
was showing up, and
Yeah, the
Timmy Norman and
yeah, the other boys there, the
Elliott's and
yeah,
stuff.
I can't think of their name. He was there. Yeah,
And what a great series.
yeah, it was.
And it was like they do one weekend on pavement, a couple weeks, and then a couple more shows on dirt. They'll be back doing the
Yeah.
and and you guys are switching things back and forth. And then Vito will kind of like, we need to get a pavement only car.
Yeah.
We're not going to just keep switching this around. So he comes up with that Dowker car that
Yeah.
kind of looked like a super modified,
Yeah.
but sprint car tail
Yeah,
on
it
it. And then it was starting to get a little more high tech. Then.
Yeah. Then we had to go to pavement. So,
Yeah, and then dirt kind of went by the wayside.
Yeah.
And because then the other tracks that were supporting it, then sprint car racing was getting expensive. Hartford was probably one of the
Yeah.
last tracks you guys were able to run at. Plus
They was-
Butler was doing weekly, and they're like, well, we don't really need to have a
We
traveling
don't need
series.
that.
We're doing our own deal. And like say, you went to pavement, and then Tommy Ish says, let's just do, because he had the Auto Value series kind of up north. He says, let's just do the Pennzoil series down south.
Yep.
And you were kind of in that middle, so you're able to run kind of both series.
I run both.
And then we got a lot of Warsaw guys starting to race on that pavement. And there's not uncommon to have 30 sprint cars on a one show.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're lucky to get 30 for a year now, but
Yeah.
there's some shows at Angola or Fort Wayne, and
Yep.
wow, look at the car
They
count.
did. They was
Man.
yeah, they good count, and it was and it was tough. I mean, it was good competition, good
Mhm.
racers. I really enjoyed it. Really.
Because Bloom, you said those guys that were the pavement specialists,
Yeah, they.
and then like say you had the dirt guys.
Yeah.
And then that's about, I'm going to say about 97, 98. Let's try Winchester with wings. And they had that first show. And I think
Yeah.
you were quick time that night.
Yeah, I had quick time.
And they had the
Well, I
feature
broke that
race.
record. I broke the world record.
Yeah. You had the feature race, and I think there was about 8 different leaders because it seemed like if you were leading, you were going to crash.
Yeah.
And Mike Blake,
Yeah.
who probably was almost a B main car, he ends
Yeah.
up winning a feature that night.
Yeah.
But ungodly speeds.
Oh,
People
yeah.
are like, oh my God,
Yeah, well,
how's this going to work? And then it's like there was the formula, and then you guys
They got-
raced numerous times, down at Winchester
After
with the
that,
wing.
Yeah. Yeah, it worked out good.
Now, like say down at Plymouth, I think you were 12-1, back when you're kind of running those unlimited tires, and
Mhm.
and that track record still stands, I think, to the day, with
Probably.
that setup back then. But was there a favorite track that you ran at with the wings?
Yeah. I really liked it there too at Plymouth. It just some reason I don't know why, but
No walls,
yeah, yeah, they didn't have the wall in the back.
But yeah, you're awfully tough at Angola too.
yeah.
And another guy we kind of forgot to mention, Denny England.
Yes.
Boy,
yeah.
he was a.
Denny was tough.
He comes up and he starts racing pavement. I think he won like 7 or 8 in a row at Fort Wayne one year.
He's good.
And it's like, my God, where'd this guy come from? He was
Yeah.
only racing dirt forever.
Yeah,
But,
he's a dirt guy, and he really done good on that bare field. He had that figured out. Yeah.
And then there was a year, it was late 80s, big USAC race at Butler. First USAC race there in years.
Yeah,
And
89.
you end up winning that thing. And
Yep.
they had all those USAC guys. I mean, Bloom brought his pavement car trying to stay in the points that year. And another guy, a couple other guys were there, and some other names, Vogler.
Yep.
And then you end up sitting up front, and,
Eric Gordon.
and you took them to town. It was like Hank Lauer kind of blows the USAC guys. That was quite the show.
Yeah, yeah, they were.
Then
I had that Eric Gordon. I tell that story that with him coming through and wanting to rent a car. He come through that night and wanted to rent a car, but he said, "I'm in the points with Butler," and he said, "I'm not in the show. You had to get in through the heat."
Mm-hmm.
And I was in, and he said, "Did you ever rent your car?" I said, "No, I never thought about it." he said, "Line in. I need to rent a car so I can stay in these points." And he said, I said, "Have you got any money?" And he said, "Yeah, we do." I said, "Well, I'm going to start on the outside front row. I'd really like to drive it myself." He said, "We don't have that much money." It was a good deal.
I remember he talking like towards the end of your racing. You're like, I'm going to get a vintage car with you guys with that vintage series once I get done racing.
Yep.
And I remember we had a 2009 up in Grand Rapids, kind of like an open vintage show. I just put it on my own. And Tim Ulmer brings a car to that track and falls off the trailer on the way there. He unloads it. Looks like it's been sitting outside probably more days than it should have. And I looked at it, and he says, "Yeah, I got this old car. It ran up at Whitmore 113. I guess it was like a car down at Butler." And I looked at it, and I was like, "That's a Hank Lauer car." He says, "Well, how do you know that?" And I said, "The body work on that thing." I said, "I got a picture of that 37." I said, "See how the body work is cut?" I said, "That car, I think, is a boy, his eyes up." And then you were in the pits that day racing. So I went and got you in the pits.
Yep.
You're coming back, and I'm like, "I think we got your own car." And you walked up to that thing, and you go, "That's my car." Boy, his eyes, dollar signs.
Yeah.
And I said, "Would you ever think of selling it?" He goes, "I think it went up in value just right now. That's a Hank Lauer car. That's worth a lot of money."
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, "Oh boy." So then Jerry, talking to Jerry about it, and he says, "We're gonna have to get that car. What's that guy's name?" And I gave him the name and the number and all that. And Jerry's like, "Oh, that guy does not
Jeff,
want to sell that."
son?
Yeah.
Yeah, my son, Jeff.
Jeff. Okay.
Not Jerry.
And,
Jerry's grandson.
There you go. I was close.
Yeah.
To Jay. And he's like, he's not wanting to let that car go. He is not going to want to let that car go. And I said, you kind of wonder what the condition of that car is, because when he brought it to Butler or to Berlin, I said, that was in some rough shape. I said, it sat outside a lot. And, and he says, well, we got to get that car. We're going to get that car. I remember seeing him at Auburn a couple of times. He will not sell that. I wanted to go up there and whip his butt or something to get him to sell me that car.
Mm-hmm.
And then you guys finally got it, but then you found out you really had to basically do a complete restore.
Yep.
But you brought that thing out to the first vintage show, and I mean, people were like, "What the heck? Hank Lauer's in a vintage car? Oh my God!" And you've been awfully quick with that car. Then you put the wing on it to make it even doubly tough for these guys.
Good piece.
And but that's just like that. Woody had such a design.
Yeah.
The bigger roll cage.
Yeah.
And then just the way it was designed, it was just and for the pavement guys, Warwick, Dembski, Dude Weaver.
It really worked.
So many guys had them at South Bend. They were instant winners.
Well, I went that way because I'd watch them, and man.
And you even came to South Bend and raced that car one night in May. And I remember they kind of took you to school there a little bit, but because I was like, the announcer, I think it was the announcer up at South Bend was the same at Butler. And he says, "This is Hank Lauer out of Angola. This is normally a Butler sportsman, and a sportsman, what the heck?" And, he came out there and ran it, but, it's like lesson learned. And then you get that thing figured out and tweaked pretty good.
Yeah, it goes good. I really, really enjoy it.
And there's always so many guys when they're like, some of those guys with VARC, they're like, "Boy, I think I got a fast car till I get by Hank, and he just blows by us like we're sitting still, And I said, we might make him put his front tires on the rear and the rear tires up front, and maybe slow him down or something.
That's exhibition. Exhibition.
But you always like to toy with them, though. Because you kind of run a little bit, and it's like, okay,
we want to make it.
And off you go. But it's for running laps, because those guys, some guys race back though. And, everybody's up in age a little bit, so a little bit slower to get around. But,
Junior Curtis.
Junior there. And the Yorks there.
Well, York, he did. The boy hadn't, but he, Pat, he's raced for. But, he beat me at South Bend one night in the sprint cars.
But
beat me out.
It's fun racing those vintage because you get so many people that just light up, and then they're still in disbelief even when you pull in with the 37, and they're like, "This is really Hank Lauer."
And beside, he's old man.
So how old are you now? 80?
I'll be 84 in May.
84
in May,
and not slowing down yet.
I hope not.
No. And then you did something at Winchester with a Silver Crown car.
Yeah, I shook it down. Yeah.
How did that feel? No wing and the
great. They're good. They got them where they really handle. They got the cars without the wings. They know how to make them handle, and you can just drive right.
It almost sounds like driving a truck.
Yeah,
just kind of like that.
Yeah, they're a little heavier, and of course they're about the same See, they're same weight as our vintage stuff. So really, I was about the same,
Mm-hmm.
other than uh, uh, their engine of more horse, but but the cars roll the corners so good. They just roll so nice.
Now, here when you were in the sprint car, you were racing 13 seconds.
Yeah.
Now the Silver Crown's about a 15.5,
Yeah,
15.8. So it's like you're
Yeah.
like, man,
Yeah,
let's just get down the track a little bit
that's
quicker.
what I thought of. Don't we go faster?
Now, did you all the years say you like racing Plymouth on the pavement days? Any other dirt tracks that you were really like had it dialed in, or you know I mean, Butler had to be different with that oiled clay.
Oh yeah, well,
You know.
sticky. It was always sticky then. We really liked that. I liked that, and I'm not even changed it. I never liked it, but I mean because they never get any grip in it.
I remember Jim Teskey race late models at South Bend, and Louis would come, says, "Hey, you got to come to Butler and race." Walt May and them guys, and Teskey's like, "All right, we'll go one night." He says he's out on the track, and he's like, "This is kind of like pavement." It's like, and then he says, "Man, we get home," and he says, "And this oil, black stuff is all over the car, the motor, the frame, the body." And Teskey's like, "We're on that thing probably for 4 or 5 days trying to clean this stuff off," because he says that was such a damn mess.
Yeah.
And Louis, so Jim's back at South Bend that following Friday, and Louis comes by and says, "Coming down Butler Saturday," and Teskey's like, "Man," he says, I probably had to pay my guys money just to clean his car." He says, "That's different. It's a little bit different." I said, "We're going to take a couple weeks off just so we don't have to worry about cleaning the car." He says, we didn't get nothing done on the car all week."
Yeah. But we found that waxing the body, wax, if that didn't stick. That was the way to do it. And then spray the iron down with oil, and the iron with oil so it wouldn't stick to it. But wax is the best.
Yeah, that was a mess. I remember he was talking about that. Walt May was the same way and that. And now, any favorite competitors over the years? Racing with Sod, he's had the Fidoa gang, and Brett Mann was another one.
Yeah, Brett Mann. He was a good shoe with, Fidoa and Tyler and I, we was the three guys that was going to be the dogs at South or at Sod. And then Mann come along and he kind of pushed us aside a little bit. He was up there too.
I remember he came to Fort Wayne, and one of his first times on pavement, and he was juking the car left and right, and Fido was trying to get around him, and he's like, "Man, that guy's going to kill us," So Brett Mann won, and Brett Mann's thinking, "You guys were driving the same way just a couple of years ago when you guys first started racing on pavement." But then Brett kind of smoothed it out, and raced a lot of some little 500s, and had a pretty good career there.
Yeah, he did. He done good. Them guys, and he come along, and what I like about it now, he's got his kids in it. He's keeping the program going. I like that.
Kind of a unique deal. I mean, racing was so synonymous back in the day, and now it's so many things you can watch on TV or play racing simulation games. Again, anybody that wants to get their hands dirty, you just don't see that much anymore. And you kind of wonder, this younger group, are they going to ever learn V8 technology? Because V8s were everything back in the day, and now everything, you open up a hood on a 4-cylinder, and it's like, holy smokes! There's hoses and sensors and lines everywhere.
Yeah, all the electronics,
and it's just different,
It sure is.
And kind of just hope racing sticks around with the costs, and the cost of tires, and the fuel, and and it's kind of like it's kind of good bad with us, because we have a good group that runs, but we don't get any money. You just show up, get in, and and there's some,
and the fuel is what's going to hurt us to get there.
$10 a gallon, if not more than that, for racing fuel, plus the fuel to get to the track with the haulers at
to get there,
12 miles per gallon. And
bothered me.
So that's going to be an interesting year for our show. I know if there's going to be a rain out, or it looks like a rain out, some guys are like, "Man, I'm not even going to go." I mean, I've done that before myself. Even I'm like, "Man, look at this. If I go, it's going to rain out. If I stay home,
we're going to have it, Don't have to.
And so hopefully we'll have a good year. I mean, I got Berlin on the schedule. It looks like the week of the Supermods, and we got Angola a few times. And
that's 150 miles from me. And I was looking the other day, I was like, "Man, I want to go there."
Yeah, I know.
I want to go there.
I know. Me doing McLawn on Sundays, it's like 160 one way, and it's like that's going to be 10 gallons of gas or 9 gallons of gas. Just go down there at $5 a gallon or $4 something. It's going to be a $40 trip on top of everything else.
That's why I said in Berlin, I thought, "Man, I don't know whether I want to do it or not." I want
A
to.
lot of history there, though.
Yeah, I know, and I want
And
to.
yeah, and you just wonder, for that being an ISMA show, I mean, Ohio's going to have their guys there.
Sure.
How many guys from the East Coast are going to be able to pull to
And they-
Berlin, and then 2 weeks later they're at Sandusky for the Nationals for the High Miler. You know,
yeah.
so that's going to be like, man, are they really going to want to go to Grand Rapids that far and
Yeah.
then go all the way back, and then
Get back.
12 days later they're coming to Sandusky? You know, so
That is ISMA there too.
so they got them
somewhere
there for the High Miler, because we got Butler, and then
Yeah.
then they got then the High Milers that last weekend in July there at Sandusky.
Yeah,
But
yeah. I'll be limited.
yeah, it's going to be a very trying year. I'll say that.
Yeah.
And if we don't have a good day with weather, it's going to be like,
Yep.
boy, what are we doing? But we're glad you came out here today.
Well, thank you.
And people always like watching you on the track, and like when you do the vintage cars in Angola, I think probably the stands is 90% for you there, and I think the other 10% aren't sure what's going on. But
Yeah.
since you mentioned your name there and stuff, and people are like watching us, watch that. I always say, watch that 37, watch that 37. Or you or Ortis
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. Artist
from
Dave's
Tennessee. He gets around pretty good too, and that.
Good. Yep,
and
he does.
stuff. But it's always neat with the vintage, because you always go on the track, you get a couple like Silver Crown looking cars,
Yes.
you get a couple midgets out there, you get
That
a
is
couple super mods, some sprints. So it's easy to talk about the history of racing when you got them all in front of you there,
Yeah.
the differences.
I enjoy doing it.
Because
very
some
much.
people see those midgets like with the Fishers and
Sure.
that, Carl, and they're like, what is that?
Yeah.
Look at them little tires. I was like, well, that's what they ran back in the day. It
Yep.
wasn't like they came out with 16-inch slicks
Yep.
back in 1945 or something, or 48.
Right.
But thanks again
Okay,
for coming
you
out.
bet.
And I'm sure you're going to be slipping good tonight, telling a lot of stories now. You might have won more races when you tell everybody today than what you did last time you talked to them.
Well,
you know.
I've lost probably more than one.
Well, thank you much, Hank. How'd that go, Mike?
It went a lot better. I got the backup. You go okay. I got a couple. You interviewing each other.
Never hurts to get extra pitch.
You got that right.
There, we got the flash.
All right.
Not me, I'm America's Most Wanted.
Oh, maybe I better call it. Frank Stevens.
Might be $50.
$50. They'll still be looking for it.
Oh, race car. Race car. Obviously, we're getting serious. I'm getting my glasses on, Isaac.
You was right tonight. He was second.
Yeah, you gotta get started in that.
Never got out of the gas.
Here you go, kiddo. Something like that.